So there's iron, copper and aluminium homemade metal mordant solutions. The iron has little bits of metal, old nails, bolts, anything lying about in a mixture of vinegar. The copper is a piece of copper pipe in a big bottle of urine. A little bit stinky, but look at that colour. Stunning. The aluminium is pieces of chocolate foil wrapper ripped up in a big bottle of vinegar. It actually looks a bit rusty. Who knows what goes into a chocolate foil wrapper? But we shall see. So I'll just mix up some little sample pots of each one with some guar gum to thicken it into a paint-like consistency. I have used the iron before as a mordant paint to achieve an inky black on cotton, but the copper and aluminium I've never used as a paint, though I have used the copper as a mordant on cotton when dyeing with crofton or pomegranate skins to achieve a yellow dye. These solutions, particularly the copper and aluminium, have been sitting for quite a while. I know the iron loses its strength over time as it oxidizes, so I'm not sure if the same is true for copper and aluminium. I just want to make up some little paint sticks instead of paintbrushes in case this is a bit of a disaster. I don't want to ruin a paintbrush. Time for some guar gum to help thicken things up. I'm pretty haphazard with measurements, and I don't actually remember what I did last time when it worked so well. But let's just dump some in. Oh, whoops. That's way too much. What am I doing? Yeah, really, way too thick. I'll just go and top them all up with a bit more mordant solution, see if we can even out the consistency a bit. Pretty clumpy and watery at the same time. Might just sit them aside to amalgamate a bit. Hopefully they'll end up being a little bit more homogeneous. They've had a little time to relax now, but they're still pretty thick and clumpy. But we make do with what we have, right? I have 2 different vats of Tannin solution that have been sitting for probably years at this point. The contents of each is various eucalyptus leaves plus water. I had periodically topped them up with more leaves and more water, but it's been a while now since either bucket has been touched. Does tannin lose its strength over time? I don't know. I probably knew once what the colour difference was between each bucket, but now I really just can't remember what sort of leaves I threw in there. So I'll throw a bunch of these sample cloths into some tannin from each bucket, and I'll boil half for 1 hour, and I'll leave the other half to cold soak over a week. I'm also going to thoroughly rinse half the samples and wash the rest with soap prior to dunking them in the tannin bath. I really love making craft, but I do seem to struggle using brand new materials for some reason. I prefer to make do with what I have on hand, and because I tend to overthink everything and the solitude of crafting lends itself to a bit of deep dive thinking, I have been pondering why I have such a problem using brand new materials in every aspect of my life, not just crafting. And I've sort of come to realize it's not really about sustainability, though it does fit snugly in with that sort of positivity. But it's more of a deeper core belief, I think, like a buried feeling at the pit of self that maybe I just shouldn't exist. And that sounds so dramatic, and I do. Don't get me wrong, I love existing. I really have no idea where this feeling comes from. I'm not sure how universal it is either. Maybe everyone feels like this deep down. Even making videos is hard to do, though being able to put a voice out into the world in a cloaked way is a bit of a thrill. I feel a little bit disgusting for taking up space in some data center across the world. Being part of the problem all over again, it's a conundrum. So in this little crafting exercise, I feel quite comforted that I'm not really wasting anything, even if it turns out to be a total disaster. For instance, this fabric is someone's old threadbare cotton night dress that they gave me after it ripped at the seams. And these little plastic pots came from a supermarket rubbish bin. The mordants came from scrap metal, old nails that I took out of a pallet from the side of the road, a piece of copper pipe left over from someone's plumbing job, aluminium foil from blocks of chocolate that had been thrown out by the supermarket because they'd reached their best before date. The chocolate was delicious, by the way. And the metals I mixed with homemade vinegar that I made from apple cores, or homemade urine in the case of the copper. And there's another free resource seen by most people as worthless and waste. All these things seem to give me comfort and satisfaction of eking out an existence in my strange and tiny life way beneath the poverty line in an affluent country, and yet somehow feeling wildly wealthy. Anyway, let's carry on without carrying on. I've not layered the paints before. I'm not sure if it will work that way or if the upper layer of paint won't penetrate the cloth as well. I do cringe a little at my painting skills, but I'm happy in the making of things, and that's enough. Vat number 1, let's uncover you. It's been a while. You're looking nice and inky. And vat number 2, hello again. This bath looks promising, so I'll put the other layered doodles in here too. So after rinsing and drying, we have the cold soak from vat number 1. It's pretty pale. And then vat number 1 simmered, slightly darker. Then the cold soak from vat 2. This is a tiny bit more impressive. And the simmered from vat number 2. I'm surprised by the difference. Vat number 1 looked so dense and saucy, and yet it delivered hardly any colour. There weren't any deep inky black tones either, That probably has to do with the age of my iron mordant solution. There isn't a huge difference between the 100% neat paint and the 50% diluted either. The soap wash versus the rinse is a bit inconclusive. Where there is a difference, it may have more to do with how hard I scrubbed rather than the presence of soap. In future, I want to add a dunging step with some homemade calcium carbonate solution from eggshells. These are samples from 4 years ago that were cold soaked, but my iron mordant solution was much fresher for this test, and it only needed half an hour or so in the Tannin bath instead of a week to develop that black tone, which meant the white background could be retained. So many variables for so many possible variations.